Here today with the Reverend almost Dr. Terry Chan, and he and I are going to have a conversation about moving from homogeneity to diversity. So, Terry, thanks for spending time with us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and just to give us a little background about, I know you're from Hong Kong.
Sure. I was born in Hong Kong, but my family actually has been here in the United States since 1869. My grandmother was born in San Jose, California. My great-grandfather was born in San Francisco. I did not grow up in a Christian home. Matter of fact, my family was not very religious at all. It was a blend of Confucianism, more of philosophy of life. And it was not until I was in just about at the end of high school that a friend finally had invited me to church, and it happened to be on a Good Friday. And so I went to a Good Friday service, and they talked about death and they talked about life. And so that was very helpful for me. And so that's a little bit about how I first got into the church.
Okay, yeah. And you were then searching the scriptures and being taught and coming to baptism and all that. Mm-hmm.
I attended on Good Friday. I was baptized on Pentecost Sunday. And the wonderful blessing for myself is that after I become a pastor, I've had the privilege of baptizing about 10 of my own family members, including my grandmother, that very same grandmother who was 80 years old when I baptized her. And she lived to 104. And I was blessed to baptize both my mother and my father after praying for them for 23 years. I've been blessed here in the Lutheran Church with some different experiences. I started out as a DCE, serving in two different predominantly white congregations. When I became pastor, I actually went back to my home congregation, the largest LCMS Chinese congregation in our synod. Then I went out and received the call to plant a new church. And I did that, and that too was a bilingual English Cantonese ministry. Mm-hmm. I received yet another call in San Francisco by two rapidly aging, predominantly white congregations, and to help them to transition and to redevelop some new ministries. And so I've been doing that I've been in this particular position for quite a few years now, about 15 years. And over that time, we've been able to grow the church, and then we hit that decline with the aging of the congregations. God gave me a new vision about where we can be and what we can be. We decided how can we best begin to partner and support other ministries and become more of a mission sending agency. And so we partner to support a sister LCMS Ethiopian Amharic language congregation. We are engaged with Chinese language ministry. We host the largest food pantry in the city and county of San Francisco. And then we also host a Spanish language ministry here in San Francisco in our church. And we are able to reach people who are Spanish speaking, who are primarily from Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, and the like. And so that is kind of the overall ministry pattern we've taken.
What are some of the things that have been most helpful to you in doing this atypical kind of ministry for LCMS?
Well, it's really recognizing that we are in a very diverse community, a very diverse environment. We have many people from many different nations who are around us, and we want to be reflective of that. And so it's recognizing the great diversity that we have here in our community.
So many of our congregations are not at all diverse in terms of ethnic background. And of course, many are located in an area where that's there just isn't much opportunity. People who are in established LCMS congregations just really don't even know what to do. Terry, what kind of word of encouragement or words of encouragement could you give to congregations like that say, well, we know we should, but we just don't know even where to start?
That's a great question. It's generally accepted that a congregation is considered diverse if it is 20% or more of a people group other than the majority group. And so, kind of the 80-20 split. And we recognize that in the Missouri Synod. It's very agricultural. It's a lot of small towns, a lot of Midwest places. And the diversity in those places might be 2, 3, 4%, if that.
Right.
And to be healthy, it's just to reflect what's in your community.
Okay. Yeah.
So if your community is 5% diverse, if your congregation was 5% diverse, and kind of reflective of that, that would be a healthy sign.
How about some of our city congregations where there is much more opportunity, but again, well, here's an example. Jan and I, we live in St. Louis, South City, not South County, South City. We've been here about 2 years now, joined Messiah congregation, which is a very ethnically diverse community, also socioeconomically diverse, which is interesting. Not many communities are diverse in that way, but we are here. And we joined Messiah. We have 2 pastors. Our younger pastor is European background, and our older pastor is an immigrant from Ghana in West Africa. And even today, occasionally, some of our African American members have told me that in their conversations, if it comes up where they go to church, and where do you go to church? I go to Messiah Lutheran. What are you going to that white church for? I mean, that's still the perception, because for decades that's what it was. Fortunately, Messiah's going in a good direction on that. But what about other churches, again, where they have the opportunity, based on the people who are their near neighbors living in their community, but just not making any progress at all in terms of welcoming such people into their congregation? Where somebody comes to you and says, Terry, what can we do? How can we get started?
Well, one of the things I think is very key is leadership. I've been working on research and a dissertation for a Doctor of Intercultural Studies program. It's a focus on the shift from homogeneity to diversity in LCMS congregations. I really believe that to make the biggest and most effective impact in reaching people other than our own culture is to be able to identify, raise up, and empower the leaders from those other groups. And so if someone is thinking, that's that white congregation, it's probably because of not seeing that there is significant leadership on that level, and being able to learn about cross-cultural leadership and intercultural leadership. How do we develop leadership across, between, and within culture will be important. So it's not an easy process, but it requires the work of the Spirit really touching the hearts of people and saying, yes, we really want to do something. We really want to make a change. So the first thing that has to happen is that there must be a spiritual dynamic, a spiritual change of heart for people to say, we want to see and do something different to reach out to these people. We don't want to just simply say, oh, well, let's reach out to another group because, well, our membership's getting older and we need new members and we need to fill the pews, or let's just rent out our facility and generate income to sustain our congregation. It really needs to be a strong desire to reach out to a people group different than your own, or to whoever might be in your community. So it really starts with that. And for a congregation, the helpful tip is self-evaluation, a time of really dedicating yourself to the Lord in terms of bringing this as an active prayer among the congregation, each individual, among the leadership, among then the priorities and decisions that are made about how to go forward. It really starts with that spiritual impetus, and see how the Lord might guide and lead.
Great. Yeah, thank you for that. When you were talking about your ministry there, you mentioned largest food pantry in the county and so forth.
Mm-hmm. The ministry, food pantry ministry, started with just searching for some avenues to engage with people in the community. And the San Francisco Marin County Food Bank was approached, and we started and said we would be willing to host and support and fund a food pantry. And it began with just posting a few notices out in the community. And the first weeks, we had 10, 20 people come by. And gradually, as people began to hear about what we were doing, it began to increase in numbers. One of the wonderful things is that in the early years, it was almost entirely staffed by the volunteers of the church. And so they had a very strong desire to become identified as a congregation that cared about people in the community. And so they worked very hard at doing that. And they saw it then as a ministry to people. As the people would come through, the congregation is now quite diverse. It has become about a third Asian American, various backgrounds, Chinese, Korean, Japanese. We've had Asian, Indian, Iranian, just a variety of people. A third white, and a third, and maybe it might even be the majority, the largest group now, African American. And so it's a diverse congregation. It's a small congregation, but it is now able to reach out to people on a diverse matter, and we reflect the community, and so the community has developed trust. We have been blessed in being recognized on a number of levels. We've been recognized and given awards for being the most welcoming food pantry in San Francisco. And so our members very early on set the tone by just accepting people as they are. Through the pantry, we've been able to foster relationships. And our members, as they gathered to start this food pantry ministry, they were very conscious of how do we welcome the people that are in the community. And people can come through our food pantry without any question. There are no requirements, no income verification, no citizenship verification. It was you come and you can receive food. And so it was a very non-threatening, a very safe environment for them to come. And we were very focused on just being accepting, being nice, being welcoming to them, and respecting their situation, and ultimately fostering relationships with these patrons that would come through, and listening to what other needs they might have. And so in asking, we were able to develop ESL classes, after school programs, citizenship classes. It was based on their input telling us, hey, here's some other ways you can really help us. It wasn't just come to our Bible study, come to our Sunday worship, kind of, we'll give you food, you come to our church kind of thing. But they really sensed that we cared about them as people. And so one of the great things was one man from China. He said, you know, I've heard people tell me a lot about God and about God loving me and things like that. But he shared that it's coming to this food pantry that he finally has actually felt loved by God. And so that was a tremendous story and witness that he has shared with us. And so that's what we continue to do. We gathered people and we would have a lunch for them. And eventually we gathered so many people, we were able to launch a Bible study, a worship service for them on Saturdays. And after a short period of time, we had well over 150 people gathered for that. And so that was a blessing. The dynamics of that has changed now, but we continue to do outreach in those different languages.
Great. Yeah, that's really, really helpful. We'll just put out there for our listeners, especially those who might not have a lot of experience with that. A food pantry might be the right thing to do, but it isn't necessarily. It's not the fix-all. It's not like one size fits all. Right. But finding unmet needs in the community and taking an inventory of the congregation, which of those needs might we be able to meet, and then get that intersection. And Terry, what I heard you describing in some detail, I've heard it described real briefly. First, we are the hands and feet of Jesus. And if we are Jesus' hands and feet consistently, and people know it's because of Jesus we're doing this, even though we're not, preaching the gospel yet. If we will be his hands and feet, many people will eventually ask, and then we get to be his voice also. And it sounds like that's what's happening. I know you've been working with your advisor on your doctoral program, Professor Enoch One. Interesting name. Give us just a short version of what have you found in your research, and what does that say to an LCMS congregation?
What I found so far is that the LCMS has great opportunity for ministry to culture other than their own. The history of the LCMS is that many came over from Europe, Northern European background. They came over as an immigrant church. And so I believe that LCMS is well positioned with that history to then reach out to other new immigrants. So the diaspora of people groups here, it is a tremendous mission field. The mission field has arrived. Missionaries are being sent here from other countries. And so that's one of the great opportunities we have. We have a tremendous opportunity to be reaching across many cultures. From Acts 17:26, how it speaks about how God has determined the time and the place for people. And we are at that time and place where God is at work among us. And it's simply turning our hearts to God and saying, what are you wanting to reveal to us? And so often we think being a witness, it's like the Great Commission, go and so on. And sometimes being a witness, maybe first is just being present. So we think back to like John 11 and Jesus raising Lazarus from the dead. The very next chapter, in chapter 12, some of these religious leaders go and see Jesus, and we think, oh, okay, that's nice. But I think they were really going there to see Lazarus, who was there. And the fact that Lazarus was just simply alive, sitting there, he was being a powerful witness. He was living the resurrection life. and the people were looking to that, and that was a powerful witness. And so it's not just about going, it's about being. He was being a child of God, being in the presence with Jesus, living that resurrected life. And I think all of us can do that. And God can work through each of us individually to live that resurrection life and be a present witness wherever we are.
Every believer in Jesus is essentially hearing the words of Uncle Mordecai to Esther. You're here for such a time as this. Thank you, Terry, and everybody participating in this. Yep, glad. This was fun. Participants, thank you, and God bless you. Mission Nation Publishing. Google us up. Find out more.